Hello YouTube, Proxy here with this week's Dark and Light update. So let's start off with the biggest piece of Dark and Light news this week, in which Dark and Light is no longer an MMO but still is an MMO? Wait, what? Yes, apparently Dark and Light is now trying to abandon the MMO title and wants to be seen more as an open world multiplayer fantasy game with survival and MMO aspects rather than an MMO with survival aspects. Now, the definition of an MMO is an online game which is capable of supporting large numbers of players simultaneously in the same instance or world. But what some consider large might seem small to others. There is not a certain or specific number where the game merely changes from multiplayer to massively multiplayer. Perhaps there should be, but until then it's really up to your own perspective if you consider it an MMO or not. Moving on from this, Dark and Light is also rumoured to have a DnL related file uploaded onto Steam, and it is currently under review. However, Snell US said that the release of the game is unlikely for November and that the uploading of DnL to Steam is just a rumour. Well, with this week's main news out of the way, let's talk about some of the more interesting parts of this week's Dark and Light's Q&A. Apparently, characters' names in Dark and Light will only be unique to the servers you play on. That means we can expect to see many Kiratos and League-less players on each server. Yay? Also to note, they are allowing the use of special characters in names. So for role players they can add specific accents to the name. But does this also mean we will see people running around as Lennyface or Kirby? An interesting approach for sure. Horsejoke also confirmed that player towns won't be an actual in-game mechanic, just something players can define them as, allowing for more freedom in how we choose to play the game. This means we can most likely build where we want to with few restrictions. The game will not be region locked in any way, so people from China will be able to play with people in the US servers, for example, and vice versa. Horsejoke was asked about PvP in Dark and Light, and this is what he said. We're expecting that most of the PvP on the PvP servers will manifest through open world PvP. Not always ganking, but probably a lot of guerrilla tactics and sieges. I'm afraid I can't answer anything about PvP arenas right now. I'm not familiar with any, but I will double check with the dev team to see what the plans are. Also, in regards to ganking in PvP, we've heard a lot of concerns from players already regarding the ganking in PvP servers, and we're hoping that the option of a PvE server will help alleviate those concerns for players who aren't into the PvP aspect of modern survival games. If ganking becomes too much of an issue on PvP servers, even for hardcore PvP players, however, we may need to look into additional restrictions and penalties. I personally plan on rolling on a PvE server, but I know there are players who really like PvP and others who just kind of like PvP. Hardcore PvP players will be happy on PvP servers, but less hardcore ones may need to settle on PvE servers or deal with the hardcore PvP environment. Again, like most things, we'll see what kind of data early access greets us with. I personally hope that PvP remains unrestricted on PvP servers. Karma systems often are flawed and usually end up being abused in some way. Players should be left to moderate themselves in a sandbox environment with little or no restrictions. I asked Horsejoke about Nvidia Ansel being added to the game, and he said, "I don't think we have Ansel integrated just yet. I think the technology is really cool, so I'll make sure the dev team knows about it so they can go ahead and look into implementing it. It will be really good for the game if they do add this. It's an amazing piece of technology and it's extremely awesome for making game footage as well as taking extremely badass screenshots. Something that will hopefully come as standard in future games." Well, that's all there is for this week's Dark and Light info update. If you want to keep updated for Dark and Light news, don't forget to subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.